Good to see everybody. It's always good to be back in these networking events, and it's just a great time to be back in action. A lot of us, I think, took a little bit of a holiday, July 4th, but here we are back again. So again, I'm Rob Strickland. I get to moderate quite a few of these, and really excited today to help moderate this panel discussion with Okta. And we've got a great set of panelists, including we have Ryan with us today from Okta. Hey, Ryan, how you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Excellent, excellent, thanks. So I'll let them introduce themselves in a minute, but I'll have them wave to you. We got Tom Malta here. So there's Tom, everyone. Say hey to Tom.
Guys.
Tom has a distinguished career, and we'll hear a little bit about that next, and can add a huge amount of value today to the discussion. And also we have John Sargent here. Hey, John. And don't let it fool you, that's just a fake background. He's not somewhere really nice, and it's probably working deep in his basement like the rest of us. So we're here to talk about Okta and quite a bit around Zero Trust. Ryan, I know you've got a few slides just to kick it off. We've got a quick sprint here to dig into things. You guys are doing some terrific work. Why don't we just quickly hand it over to you, bring us into kind of the discussion line. What are you guys up to?
Sure, yeah, I'll just go through a couple quick slides here to get the discussion going. All right, is that showing up for you guys?
Yeah, we're looking good.
Perfect. So quickly, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on slides. We want to get to the discussion quickly, but it's not new. It's not news anymore that remote work is here. Dynamic work, hybrid work, permanent work from home is here, and that was already the case, pre-pandemic, but obviously the pandemic last year and the stay safe, at home kind of thing really accelerated that for us. And leaders around companies around the world have really indicated like they're going to support dynamic workforces, hybrid workforces. 80% said all of their employees could work at home or at the office, whatever they choose. And nearly 50% said they can work from home permanently. But at the same time, everyone knows, identity-based attacks have really accelerated last year. You've probably seen these stats from the Verizon DBIR this year. More than 60% of data breaches were caused by stolen credentials. More than a third of all breaches, included phishing attacks. And then again, ransomware is just back on the scene, making a tear, hijacking schools and hospitals, food and fuel. You guys have seen all of these stats, but really the key there is that identity attacks are here to stay, and gaps in your identity security strategy pose a huge risk to organizations. So that's kind of where we're going with Zero Trust and identity-based security. So recently, we at Okta commissioned a new Zero Trust report. We launched it yesterday, so this is hot off the presses, where we interviewed 600 IT decision makers from directors on up to the C-suite within organizations around the world, and noted that, you can see here, Zero Trust, we were all probably at RSA before everything shut down, or the different security conferences around the nation, around the world. And Zero Trust was kind of a buzzword. It was the hot thing to talk about. Really, it's moved beyond buzzword status, and it's really here to stay. You can see 90% of the organizations we surveyed said they either have a Zero Trust initiative now or will have one in the next 12 months. That's up from the year ago report that said 41% of organizations either had one or plan to have one in the next 12 months. And of course, the global pandemic, the remote work environment has really triggered this spur towards Zero Trust security. More than 3/4 of organizations, I think it was about 78% of all organizations surveyed, said Zero Trust security has increased in prioritization for their organization. And you can see it's even the top priority for some organizations. For the Forbes Global 2000 companies that were included in the survey, 36% of those respondents said it's now their top priority. So, of course, it's moved beyond just buzzword status. Just a couple more slides, if this will click over. There we go. So really, Zero Trust is all about dynamic policy evaluation, using context from all of the resources you have available, and only granting the right level of access to the right person on the right device in the right context for the right amount of time. So your resources could be, in the cloud or on premise. They could be platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, CASB, AIs, even your network. So if you think about context the resources can provide, like your CASB solution could give you information about the application. It can give you deep visibility into whether it's a corporate resource or shadow IT. You can get context from other resources, including device posture and the state of information around your devices from your MDM solution. In our Zero Trust survey, we actually found all organizations kind of ranked priority for gaining access to critical resources. And the top three were all around devices, whether the device was managed, whether the device was healthy, or whether the device was known, were kind of the top three requirements for allocating access to different resources during the pandemic and kind of going forward. So the idea here is you want to have a centralized control plane that gives you, access based on context from your various resources to your employees, no matter where they are. And that includes your third-party external users as well, your partners, your contractors, your supply chain when it needs to happen. So this is kind of a framework for using an identity-first approach to Zero Trust across all of your different resources. And then just a little bit about Okta. This is my last slide before we get into the discussion. Really, Okta is focused 100% on identity and access management. It's all we think about. It's what we're focused on. It's not really just kind of a point in time part of our roadmap, but it's our long-term vision of, the future of a connected world and how we're going to allow access to our critical resources at various times across various resources to various people and groups. So we're born and built in the cloud. We're focused on connecting everything. We are independent and neutral. We work across your entire ecosystem, your technology ecosystem, and have deep integrations through our Okta integration network. I think we have nearly 7,000 integrations now across your entire ecosystem. And really, we're built in a way that's focused to give, help you build an identity-first approach to your Zero Trust security. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back over to Rob.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ryan. Great, crisp intro. Hey, so Tom and John, I'm going to hand it over to you guys here in a second, just to do a little intro and a little bit of dialogue. But one of the things that just caught me, not off guard, but I was like a lot of people on holiday, a little bit of longer holiday, 4th of July weekend. As you recall in the news, like a bunch of people got hit pretty hard that weekend. Just quick comments from you. How might a Zero Trust platform help some of those companies avoid what inevitably was probably a pretty difficult weekend for quite a few people? Tom, let me start with you.
Sure. So thanks, Rob, and thanks for having me today. Happy to be here, guys. So yeah, I think in terms of Zero Trust, just to give you my take on it, I mean, it all starts with good identity management at the core, right? What I would call that core foundational stuff, right? So if you've got people coming in and out of the firm for instance, a lot of companies are still doing, model after as an example, right? So right out of the gate, you're giving people extra privileges that they don't need, right? Also, I think I can, from being in financial services for about, my whole career, what I can share with you there is that, sorry about that, never fails, right? Um, what I can share with you there is, we're always focused on trying to make sure we're giving people just what they need to do their jobs, the concept of least privilege. So we're seeing a lot of movement of late to more coarse-grained access, as opposed to trying to give everything out to people and that they need to do everything across their job, do more coarse-grained, get the stuff that's common to everybody in the department, take the fine-grained information, move it outside of that, maybe use APIs to call it, policy-based access control and so forth. So there's a lot of components of zero trust, I think, Rob. I certainly want to let John chime in here as well. It just depends on what lens you want to take at it. But for the audience, I think, and there was a question that came in, it's in all industries, right? It doesn't mean that, whether it's financial services or healthcare, definitely two highly regulated industries, but everybody can benefit from those concepts, right?
Yeah, great. John, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. And also thanks for having me today. Happy to be here. I think the portion of zero trust that we need to add on in this situation where we have much more employees remote and dealing with them doing their tasks in a way that they haven't done before, is to add on, like Tom said, add on that conditional access to their tasks. So it's not just about who it is, I know they have their password, but it's where are they? Is this the right time? Is it the right situation for that individual to be trying to exercise that access? And that's a change, right, in the way we view an individual. Right? We previously we trusted, right? The person is using their password. They are who they say they are. Now we need to understand not just are they who they say they are, but are they using a machine that's the right machine? Is it in the right location? And are they trying to do a task that's relevant, not just do they have permission, but is it relevant to their job at the time?
Mm-hmm. So right away, we got a question from the audience just in terms of sectors that maybe have a more focus on zero trust. And I think, Tom, you kind of mentioned a little bit, like it sort of cuts across. Ryan, how are you looking at this? Like, nobody's really immune to this, kind of the vulnerabilities, right? Would it be fair to say that we're looking at this as across the entire set of industries? I mean, how are you guys double clicking on specific verticals?
Yeah, good question. So we're seeing it across all industry verticals, as Tom said. And I would say, so we did quite a bit of industry segmentation based on our zero trust survey that we just launched. And I will say financial services and healthcare are a lot more mature already off the gate, most likely because they are highly regulated, dealing with so much sensitive information. The third vertical we really looked at was software companies. And so while they're not quite there yet, they're actually going to probably be caught up to healthcare and financial services in the next 12 to 18 months with where they're going with the projects they're focusing on towards their advancing their zero trust security initiatives. We also looked at other verticals as well, manufacturing, retail. So they're all heading in that direction. I would say financial services and healthcare kind of leading the pack, but there's going to be a lot of work to catch up in the short term.
Mm-hmm. And what do you guys think? Like, it's what's so interesting now too with the workforce, this hybrid workforce, and just kind of how are people working from home, working in the office, traveling again? Maybe we're kind of edging into this sort of whatever we might call post-pandemic. So how do you think that that's going to impact the kind of work that you guys do from professional and also product, right? And then, if you could couple with that, how do you plan out a pandemic 2.0? I mean, because, what happens with COVID-20 comes or COVID-21? Do you think we're more prepared? I'm just kind of curious how you guys are thinking about some of that from your perspective. So maybe, John, let's start with you this time.
Well, I mean, we've certainly been able to transition a huge percentage of our workforce to remote work and are planning to continue to support that model, allowing employees to work remotely. So next pandemic, I don't think impacts us in the same way. It isn't a fundamental shift from primarily on premise to primarily remote. Now we're fully embracing a hybrid model for workforce. So I don't think if something like that happened again where we needed to keep people apart to be safe, I don't think it's as big of an impact to our operations.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Tom, what about you? How are you looking at that?
Yeah, Robin, I think you touched on it a little bit. And as John said, I think, when this first happened, 18 plus months ago, a lot of companies were scrambling, to get their workforces all working remote. And that was a big push, right? Over that first 6 to 8 months and just, the enormous amount of change that people had to go through. Since then, I think we've gotten accustomed to it. We can show that we could be effective at it. Industries can continue to make money, right? In a remote situation. I think some of the interesting things that came out of it, one, when you're in the office, right, a lot of corporations still will have just single factor authentication because you badged into the building, you badged into your floor, and now you're at your desk and you just use your ID and password. And oh, by the way, it's an 8-character password, which 60% or more of the companies in the world are using, and can be cracked in a couple of hours, right? So it went from that to everybody's working remote, and suddenly everybody's got 2-factor authentication, right? Because minimally, most companies, if not all, hopefully, if people were working remote pre-COVID, had at least 2 factors, right? And it's interesting. I get questions now, excuse me, like, hey, Tom, our workforce is going back into the office. I've been thinking about this. We had this great 2-factor for everybody before. Kind of only have single factor now. Hey, what can we do to add a second factor for everybody, right? And I think that's great. And like we at Okta, I think something like an Okta Verify, for instance, as an add-on, would be a great way to take that to the next level. I will tell you, in the financial services space, what I'm doing from a strategic perspective, a lot of programs I've been involved in is even go to a 3rd factor for very, very sensitive things. Excuse me, like a firewall change from a Starbucks. Hey, I want that guy to put a YubiKey into his laptop. I want to make sure he's got the token on him. And I know who he is. Right now, again, that might be ultra paranoia, having worked in financial services my whole life. But it's just kind of, I think, another good fail-safe. But certainly defer to you guys to chime in on that.
Yeah. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I agree with both John and Tom on this. I think the pandemic accelerated everyone's response to dealing with something like this, even though they were kind of on the right path, if you will, or working towards that move initially. I also think, while the industry has talked about kind of frictionless access, making it more end user friendly, getting to the right resources quickly and seamlessly was kind of a nice to have. I think now it's a need to have. So organizations, whether they're at the office, at home, at a Starbucks, like Tom said, they need to get access, or they're demanding access seamlessly and quickly. So we need to, the focus needs to be on securing that seamless, frictionless access. And so we're seeing a lot of organizations move towards passwordless authentication, using different factors, like Tom said, are more highly assured, like biometrics and things like that, that can get them the access they need quickly, but also securely as well.
We do need, like, I think you said the right word there, is frictionless, right? It needs to be,
Right.
it needs to be easy to use, so that your end user population aren't resisting. That we want to increase security, but at the same time make it as seamless and as easy as possible. So we're enabling our users to be remote, to do their work, but also to do it securely.
Yeah, and it's interesting, just to chime in on that too. I think what we've seen in the last 18, 24 months is all the things you guys are saying. And I think traditionally, when you're managing SIAM or customer identity access management, right, we put so much focus for years on making it so easy for customers to log in, frictionless, lots of different ways for them to authenticate, lots of different modalities. And what did we do to the workforce? We kind of ignored them, right, for a long time, right? And so now, the workforce is demanding that. And I think, Ryan and John, the points you touched on are like spot on. That frictionless experience that was on the customer side needs to move over to the workforce side now, right? And also be very strong and secure.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Well, one of the things I would just reflect on, this is sort of interesting about just how much security is taking up our day-to-day conversations, the roadmaps, the discussions at the C level and the board. It's been years for me hiring a CISO, and I'd go into the C-suite, and maybe a little commentary here, but go into the C-suite and say, hey, we need to hire a CISO. I'm like, what's a CISO, right? Or like, why are we putting so much money behind security? And now for you guys, we got about 50 some people on this call. I mean, like security is kind of like going back, like, what do you go at? What would you go into? Sort of security, the new plastics, right? So I'll never forget being in Silicon Valley at one of these VC meetings, and Alan Boehm, who was the CISO at Coke at the time, he was explaining to the VCs that he would predict that the next unicorns will come out and be in security, and they're like, nah, it'll never happen. I mean, so, it's you guys all in the security field have just done a tremendous amount of work in a short amount of time. And Okta has come in with some terrific products and tools to allow all of us to sleep a little bit better, at night. So we really appreciate that. But, it's really been a transformation. And, Ryan, I think you guys have just a super strong roadmap and you're continually innovating. Yeah, how do you see like unfolding out here, let's say for the next 2 years or so, things that you would imagine that we could see that might also help us do our jobs better, or even how we evolve. I mean, the job of security, these are jobs that are hard to find now. Talent is really difficult to acquire. But you guys are helping a lot because you're providing great tools. So just a little commentary, maybe how you see things going.
Yeah, so we have like an identity and access management maturity curve website you guys can jump on. It's based on how our customers are progressing towards their zero trust security models. It is based on what the feedback we do get from our customers. But what we're seeing is most people are towards the beginning of that maturity curve, where they're deploying MFA to some of their resources to their employees, but really they're starting to think about deploying MFA to their contractors, to their business partners, and their supply chain. And as you kind of move from left to right on that maturity curve, if you can think about it in your head, you're looking at next is kind of context-based access. So where are they logging in from? What is the device? What's the status of the device? Things like that. Also like lifecycle management. So when employees stop working with you, how do you automate that deprovisioning or the provisioning of new employees as they come in to access all the resources they need right away, and deprovision that access right away, so you don't have any of those kind of ghost access accounts that could provide risk to your organization. Same thing with like contractors and business partners. You need to make sure that's automated. So like you said, talent and resources is kind of the #1 pain point for security today. So how do you automate that so you immediately remove risk, but also free up resources for your security teams as well?
Great, thanks. So if any one of our audience wants to engage with Okta, what's the first best or next, kind of best optimal use case to engage with you guys? How would you see something like that, for someone who's interested in getting to know you guys a little better?
Yeah, so we do, like I said, we have that zero trust assessment tool. We think, identity is a core pillar, obviously, for zero trust security model. We believe identity is where you start with a zero trust. So you can go on our website and take the assessment and kind of figure out where you are on your identity and access management maturity curve. But we also have this report I just mentioned. It's live on our website now. It'd be interesting for you to see kind of how you stack up, how you're thinking about zero trust against your peers in your industry or company size or even your region. So just out that.
Great.
Yeah, just to add to that, Ryan, I mean, if anyone has questions on the call or follow-ups, feel free to reach out to us, either through LinkedIn or tom.malta@okta.com. It's pretty easy to remember. So we're happy to entertain any and all questions if we don't get to them today.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Hey, real quick, one question just came up from Al Gardner. Do you guys do MDM tools?
We're not an MDM vendor, but we do definitely consider that the integrations with our MDM partners, as well as, extend access policies like an adaptive MFA and SSO single sign-on to those types of products as well.
Great. So John, Tom, anything that kind of top of mind for you, just that you wanted to toss into the conversation today?
I just got one point, and I'll turn it over to John. I know we're up on time here soon, but I think Ryan touched on some great things about on and offboarding, right? So if folks on the call are wondering, how do I get started with Zero Trust, and you're still doing a lot of manual provisioning, manual deprovisioning, maybe manual certifications of access, some of the simple things that you can do to get big wins is, tie that to your identity events, right? From your HR feeds. You got a termination feed coming in. Make sure you're getting rid of access based on that feed. It's relatively simple to automate that. We'd certainly love to help you with that, obviously, right? But there are some really basic things that you can do to start making it better. But I think, there's a lot of components to it. So it really just depends on where you are in your journey. And hopefully, some of the things you heard today are useful to you folks.
Great, thanks. John?
Yeah, I think to add on to what Thomas just said there, the onboarding, offboarding as an automation task is a great step in security, and then reviewing those access entitlements, something we have to do in regulated industry anyway. But there's nothing stopping other industries from making that a task that you do. Go back and review the access. Is it appropriate still? Is that the appropriate role for that person? And then adding just-in-time access for critical tasks that you don't necessarily need to always have that particular access. But when that task, you have a ticket open or an activity that needs to happen, at that point you have the access, and then afterwards you don't. So if you are compromised, or if you are dealing with that type of situation, that party doesn't gain access they don't need, or that you don't want them to have.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, Tom and John. Ryan, final remarks, over to you to close it out for us.
Yeah, I would just say final remarks. Zero Trust is here to stay. It's moved beyond that buzzword status we saw a couple of years ago. You can see, with the industry analysts, industry leaders, and even like the federal government mandating Zero Trust and multi-factor authentication. It's not going away. Look at those simple wins, balance usability with security, and reach out if you have any questions. Reach out to Okta. Happy to help out.
Great, thanks. Impressive company, Ryan. Thanks so much. Dan, thanks again for SINC for hosting and setting this up. Fantastic as usual. So everybody, thanks for attending. Have a great and safe rest of your day.